How to remove fairings from a 2009-2010 Kawasaki ZX6R. At cowiforums.com. It is from Thrash 1982. Thank you very much. You will get credit, and yours is the tutorial I have used before, but now I'm going to turn your tutorial into a video. Okay, to start with, I only put it up on the rear stand when I'm removing the fairings, because my wife's bike is lowered. She's a rather short gal, and I don't have much space between there, and I don't want to scratch anything. Speaking of scratching things, this lime green Kawasaki paint job, which we both love, it scratches real easy. So lay out a beach towel on your garage floor for you to put all your fairings onto when you're doing this. Alright, step one. You're going to remove this little black side piece here. You're going to need a 4mm Allen hex head. You'll know that if you've watched my videos, I call things by multiple names because they have multiple names, and I'm not a jerk that tells you have to say foot-pounds or pound-feet or whatever. Just say what people understand. What you're going to do is there's going to be a bolt here up front, and then a little pop that pops out, and these little Velcro tab thingies. So, 4mm bolt.
And I'm doing this in real time so you can actually see how long it takes to do each step. Obviously there's two of everything, one on each side, so double the amount of time you see what it takes to do
things. Easiest way is to get your fingers underneath wherever you can. The other side was actually a little bit easier. There we go. It pops out of the green rear sub-fairing back here, comes out from underneath the seat. The little Velcro comes undone, that little pop I showed you, whole thing comes off. Good maintenance practice. If you know it won't be in your way, put all your bolts back in the holes they came from. Then you won't have extra bolts at the end. Next, the seat. Another 4mm bolt underneath here, one on each side.
This time you're going to actually see both sides. Again, real time. Reach in there, get the bolt out, don't lose it. Other side. Reach in there, get the bolt out, don't lose it.
Seat comes forward, up, forward, and off. Put your bolts back, don't lose them. Oh, I'm really looking forward to pissing off a bunch of people. I'm about to remove the battery. And guess what? It doesn't matter if you remove negative or positive first, because electrons actually flow from negative to positive. So everybody tells you to remove the positive first because you're going to break the circuit, or remove the negative first to unground it, or it doesn't matter. Break the circuit anywhere. I'm using a big ass screwdriver. Why? Because you want to use the correct size screwdriver for the bolt that you have. I've got big ass bolts, so I'm using a big ass screwdriver. It fits perfectly in the hole, and I don't end up stripping out the top of the hole. Removing negative first just because it's closest to me. Now the circuit is broken. I could do anything I want electrically to this bike and nothing bad would happen. Oh yeah, removing the battery on this bike. It's a little metal clip that goes around towards the rear subframe, and you just kind of pull the little clip out. You just reach in there, pops right out. It's real easy. Good maintenance practice. Anytime you take something out, remove something, there's a cavity down in there and you see a bunch of leaves and sticks and crap, grab your handy dandy shop vac and clean up in there. There's no reason to leave whatever you're working on dirty. Yeah, real quick, if you have a bone stock ZX6R, there's going to be a key to remove your seat. This has some sort of aftermarket seat, so as you can see, actually the back seat is just kind of this weird little tab that somebody installed for us, so we don't have any keys to remove our seats. No reason to remove the back one. I just wanted to show you if you had to do your own seat, front or back, you'd actually need to use a key to remove your seat if it's stock. This is one way in which I differ from Thrash 1982. I like to remove this little wind dam that's behind the front wheel in front of the exhaust pipes leading up to the radiator prior to doing the lower fairings. To remove it, you've got a bolt and a pop rivet on both sides. Doug, how do pop rivets work? Most of them, you actually press it in to release it. Doug, I removed the pop rivet here, now it's in two pieces. That's pretty normal, and if you do it right, you won't even break anything. So the way you remove these pop rivets is you press in on the little dot in the center, and now that little dot is pressed in, and as you can see, the little needle punches out, but what that does is that allows these little prongs to now close so that you could theoretically pry the pop rivet out of the plastic. Or what happens oftentimes is you push in so hard that the little prong just pops all the way out. Oh crap, Nope, it's not broken. It's fine. How do you put a pop rivet back in? Well, the easiest way is to not even have the prong in there at all. And then you stick your little housing into your plastic fairing, and then you just put the prong in after the fact. Is when you press the prong in, now when you're flush, these little plastic bits here are splayed out and they can't compress and they hold your plastic together. So buy some, they're cheap. And then the last portion of removing that little front wind dam is it's got this little prong that goes into that little rubber grommet that's dead center between the exhaust pipes. So remove the bolt and the pop rivet from both sides, and then once you have both sides, all four, 2 bolts, 2 pop rivets moved, grab in the center and just pull it right out. Lower fairings, 3 bolts at the front, 1 at the rear on both sides. You have to lower the kickstand to get at the one on the left side. The kickstand's in the way if it's up. Again, your handy dandy 4mm Allen wrench, hex head, whatever you want to call it.
I'm removing screws. It's not exactly exciting. Nothing really for you to learn here. Remove the screws. Wow. Yay.
One in back. Still 4mm, just a different screw head. Should be a pop rivet at the bottom. Indeed there is. Are you a different style? Ah! This one pops out rather than in. Some really big ones though, like the one on this lower fairing. I don't know if you can see it very well. You have to find the little spot where it's cut out. Buy these, keep them in stock. Grab yourself a tiny little screwdriver. Find the little hole. Buy these, keep them in stock. They're cheap as dirt. I always have extra pop rivets lying around just in case. And that will allow me to remove the lower fairing that I've already removed all the screws from, and then I'll do the other side. Oh yeah, and almost every fairing that's interconnected with another fairing has like little plastic tabs between it, so don't just pry stuff out. Figure out which way your tabs go. For instance, the lower fairings, the tabs kind of point down, so you got to separate the 2 lower fairings from each other, and then pull the fairing down without breaking things. Doug, why shouldn't I just pull plastics out? Well, because there's supposed to be 4 retaining tabs on these 2 fairings. You notice there's only 1. It's because the previous owner, he just pulled the bolts out, couldn't figure out why it was connected, and just yanked it out at 90 degrees. So, yeah, if you want to get your wife pissed off at you and break her bike, go ahead and do that. If you want to do it right, you can just push in on the lower fairing or just figure out the way it goes together and gently remove it, and you won't break the plastic tabs. Next step, and another reason why it's nice not to have your bike on a front stand. You're going to remove the 2 pop rivets that are up here on the upper fairing. To do that, the reason why it's nice not to have it on a stand is sometimes you might want to move your handlebars, especially when you get back to this bolt here, so it's nice to be able to turn your handlebars and get things out of the way. Earlier you saw me pressing in the pop rivets and then just letting the center punch just fly out. In this case I'd probably lose it because it's up here, so I'm actually going to remove it the right way, which is only press it in a little bit. It'll pop to a next stage. Take a tiny little screwdriver, a little eyeglass screwdriver, and you can pull your little pop rivet right out. Got 4 of those, 2 on each side. 2 bolts, front and rear. Again, 4mm hex key. That's your rear one here, close to your gas tank. Your front one is actually up here into the wind on your front fairing, right next to your mirror. You'll see later this actually does connect to this upper fairing. Underneath here, it's long and convoluted, so just remove these 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Oh, that green paint just loves to flake off these bikes. It's well known. These little plastic protector dealios, again, invest in these too. You're gonna want these anywhere that a metal screw touches that lime green paint job. Put the little plastic washer between the screw head, the bolt head, and the lime green paint job. Those 4 bolts and 4 pop rivets were just to remove this little upper fairing piece. It's got these 2 prongs in the back. They actually go into the frame itself. So when you remove it, I've already removed this, what you're going to do is you're going to pry those 2 prongs out. Careful, just bend the plastic only as much as you need to bend it. Once those 2 prongs come out, the whole thing will just slide right out with very little effort. Matter of fact, I'll see if I can do the other one while we're still on the video here. So I'm going to turn my handlebars out of the way. I'm reaching in back, the two prongs that are against the frame, prying them out, and bam. That quick and easy. I know you didn't really see what I did from the backside, but you saw how fast it was. Oh, if you don't break your pop rivets, then hold on to them too. Put it back in, pop the little thing flush. Now you won't lose your pop rivets either. When you're reassembling it, it takes a little extra time because now you have to unthread each screw and remove each pop rivet. I'd rather take the extra time and not lose anything. A little word about these rubber grommets. These are threaded rubber riv nuts. Basically, it's a little nut that goes in here, and if you have one that's been over torqued, you'll know it because it'll slide, it'll strip, it won't grip anything. You don't need to torque the crap out of these things when you're retightening them, and a lot of people do, and they get destroyed. Riv nuts are a little pricier than pop rivets, but still, if you have one that's destroyed, it's well worth going to a shop and buying a few of these. The way it's supposed to be is when you tighten down the thread of the screw, the rubber bulges back, and it creates, when you first buy it, it'll barely have any bulge at all right here. You see how it's bulged up against the plastic? The small amount of bulge is good. That's the entire point of it. The bulge holds it in place. But because people think everything needs to be torqued all the shit, they'll keep turning it and turning it and turning it in that bulge, and eventually that bulge will flatten, and it'll tear, and the entire rubber piece will fall out. Don't do that. Next is your windscreen, and if you've got to this step and you've been following me step by step, it is literally just those 4 bolts you see right there, and it slides right out. I don't really feel a need to demonstrate that. Hey Doug, let's talk about acrylic. Acrylic is a thermoplastic, which means if you heat it up, it will be malleable. It only takes so many heat cycles though, because it does outgas and then it'll become crap. The other deal with acrylic is that means in the sunlight and cold and heat cycles and day and night and everything, the plastic expands and contracts, and as you know, metal also expands and contracts. Well, I promise you, thermoplastic, acrylic, will expand and contract a boat ton more than metal. So you'll notice these bolt holes seem like they're all wallowed out, but you can see that the bolt just kind of wanders in there. That's intentional. So if you ever have to work with acrylic or you have to do anything with your windscreen, don't mess with that. Actually make your bolt holes too big so that the plastic can move around. Because if you have it super tight, your plastic will try to expand around this bolt and it will crack. Also with torquing these down, again, don't torque a lot. It's an aerodynamic piece. Wind is going to fly off of it. It's held down in place. You don't have to tighten it down as if it's going to run away on you of its own free will. Just tighten it enough to hold it in place. You can see here where somebody previously tightened this and there's already a little bit of a crack there. That will eventually expand. I'll eventually have to replace this entire windscreen because somebody tightened that so much that they cracked it right there, and these, oh, both sides, there you go, and these will no longer hold. Just 2 little ears, and I'm going to spend hundreds of dollars replacing a stupid windscreen. Yay, let's remove the mirrors. My wife's previous bike was an 07 GX6, and she had those damn turn signal mirrors. Oh, I hated those things with a passion. These, however, your handy dandy 4mm Allen wrench, 2 bolts on each mirror. Oh hey, saw that pop right free. No wiring running up to them, so they pop off with ease. This is one of the rare instances where I'm not going to rethread these. If I put these bolts back into the green fairing, it's actually going to hold the fairing in place. Glass, and I'm going to put it in a safe place. I'm going to set the mirror off to the side with the bolts right where they go, and then I'm not going to touch it again until it's time to put the mirror back on.